Hey guys, Creepy Allen here. And next thing I like to do when I'm getting ready to go on a tour is I like to clean up my bike and do some maintenance on it and some things that I find that you need to do before you go. So first off, I'm going to spray it with some little bit of all-purpose degreaser. Stuff works pretty good, doesn't hurt the paint, and we'll go to time lapse. Alright guys, while that fella's cleaning the bike, let's move on to what I do next. And what I've done is, now the clean bike won't necessarily get you home, okay? It's good to have it clean so you can see if something's broke or whatnot, but I've ridden home on a dirty, greasy bike, so you're gonna make it. But these bolts like this that are on your rack or down here on your bottle cage, any of these Allen bolts, some people have them on their seat post right here, fender bolts, things like that. Those bolts can work their way loose when you're on a ride, and if you're not vigilant about tightening them up and keeping them tight, you could lose one. And I'll tell you, to lose this bolt here on the road could be a nightmare. You could always throw a piece of clothes hanger or a wire through there and wire it up, but the problem is that the bolt itself screws into the frame. So if you put wire through there and you wallow out these threads, you're either going to have to go a size bigger and put in new threads and hope that whatever you're drilling is big enough to take bigger threads and not weaken it enough to break when you do put weight on it. So to avoid that, there is a little trick that I use, and let's see if we can get the camera here. Okay. I take it's called Blue Thread Locker, and I don't know, it's Preventative, but they make several different brands. And what this does is you put a little bit of it on the see, it just comes out, and you put a little bit on your threads, and you just kind of work it in to the threads. As you can see, a little goes a long ways. Okay, now you don't have to put a lot, just work it into the threads, save your excess, and then just put it then, as you can see, the thread locker is on here. Now what this is going to do is go in there and be on those threads. We don't want to get this cross threaded. Okay, so what this is going to do is going to be on your threads when you get it started back, but me showing you going back in, it's not the point. And it does, and I'll get it back in there in just a minute, but I don't want to spend too much time on it. What it does is it locks this bolt in place after it sets up. After it sets up, it gets a little gummy consistency, and it locks this bolt where it doesn't back out on its own. Now, excuse me, I took this out. It had thread locker on it, and I took it out. It had thread locker on it from a year ago or so, and I took it out. But you have to use a tool on most of these anyway. But if you put this stuff on it, you're going to have to use a tool to break it loose to get it back out, and then it's not a problem. Now, in contrast to locking these threads, your pedals, and if you have S&S couplers or things like that, things that you don't want locked, or things that tend to seize up. If you've ever had trouble getting a pedal off and you had to use a pry bar or a longer wrench, it's because it locked up, okay? It froze up. So in order to combat that, there's an easy remedy for it too. And this is Antiseize. Just, you know, Antiseize. You put that into your search and it'll come up with a bunch of different brands. They all pretty much look the same, but this isn't the pack. I carry this with me on the road because I'm telling you, when your pedals lock up or freeze up, it's not fun. Okay, if you're out there on the road and you have to, for some reason, take your pedal off, it's not fun. And the S&S couplers, I tighten those every day anyway, so I don't want those freezing up. So it's basically the same thing. You simply take a little bit of it and just go down in here with a little bit, and as you can see, it's a silver, just a silver thing, and just like the Permatex, I just put it in the threads. You see that, but it's silver on silver, so, but it's in there, okay? And then you just take your pedal wrench or whatever you've got, and you put your pedal back on. And pedals, you don't have to tighten very much, because when you pedal, it helps keep them tight with the rotation. So, you know, and don't over tighten your pedals. If you don't use this stuff, especially, I'm not saying use it, but don't over tighten your pedals. You don't have to. Just check them periodically if you want to make sure they're tight. Okay. Now the S&S couplings, they come with their own wrench, and it's basically done the same way. I just take it loose right here, and I'll just put the Antiseize on them just like I did the pedals, and tighten them up. And then every day before I take off, they recommend that you tighten the S&S couplers. Okay, so that's that. That's simple enough. Now that takes care of your bolts falling out and your pedals not freezing up. Now the next thing I like to do is to make sure that everything is greased properly. Okay, as you can see, this one is this axle is greased, because you don't want to ring an axle. All right, just say it wasn't. Okay. Take you a little grease, and I do carry some with me on the road. But take you a little grease and just put you know, small amount onto the axle, and sometimes I'll shoot a couple of pumps into the hub itself. Just kind of smooth it around. All right. Make sure there's little springs on these axles. Make sure you don't lose them. And the big part of the spring goes to the outside. Now what fell off over here is my trailer hookup. It's not a problem. So just take the axle, put it back in, slide it forward. I'll put this piece back on over here for my trailer. Throw the spring back on. And put the nut back on. Alright, now when you do this, make sure your bike is on the floor or on the ground, because you want your axle and your rim to seat properly. So then just tighten it up. You don't have to tighten it up a lot because of the quick release. Just enough to where you have some pressure on it. Go a little bit tighter and close your bed. Okay. And you do that for the front as well. So you can do it for your headset. You can grease your headset, but this one doesn't need grease, so I'm not going to take it apart. It's not really involved method. You know, you just take your bolts loose, your spacers off, and your fork will fall out. You grease it in here, and then the same way you put it back in there. If somebody wants to see that, just let me know, and I'll do it. But as far as the grease goes, some people take off their bottom bracket and they grease it, but this has the eccentric bottom bracket on it with the sleeve in it. I don't have any reason to take it off or pull it out. Show you about the eccentric bottom bracket at another time. Another thing you want to do is get you some chain grease. And what I do, I guess it's a preference, personal preference on how people grease their chains, but I grease them, basically I put a little bit of grease and I'm squeezing the grease into the chain itself, and I'll go all the way around with it, making sure the grease gets in every link. I don't have a problem with using too much grease on my chains. If someone's got a reason why they wouldn't use as much grease or more grease, let me know. But there we go. I'm sure we're all the way back around. Yeah, that's good. But my theory is the grease will sit there over the next hours and it'll soak in, and then what doesn't soak in will fly off. Okay? As you can see, the chain and the sprocket is getting some grease on it. The chain is greased, and she's good to go. All right. Well, it wouldn't hurt if you wanted to. You can spray a little lubricant in here. I use a little spray lubricant, but like I say, this one's already done. I don't really grease anything else or put any Loctite on anything else. But if you do and I missed something, let me know, because some people may not know. So if we don't tell them, they get out there and they get stuck, it could help them out, the ones that don't know. All right, that's cleaning a bike, greasing a bike, lubing it up, and making sure. This is really important. Those bolts, I suggest you Loctite every bolt on your bike. You go through, take the time. It took me about maybe a couple hours when I do it to Loctite every bolt, and I haven't had any problems with them on the road or just riding anywhere. So I hope that helps, and until next time, keep pedaling.